It is 6:08. I will now call to order the October 21st, 2019 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. The meeting is being recorded. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Being none, we will move on to public hearings and meetings. First item on the agenda, request for determination of applicability filed by McDonald's USA LLC for McDonald's restaurant located on 121 Northampton Street, map 108, lot 128. Applicant is seeking a determination of applicability for work related to the proposed replacement of ADA accessible parking spaces and sidewalks and ramps to meet ADA requirements. Good evening. Please introduce yourself for the record.
For the record, my name is Brandon Barry, I'm Bowler Engineering on behalf of McDonald's. As was mentioned, we're seeking a request for determination of applicability for some minor maintenance work to the existing restaurant on Northampton Street. The restaurant shown here is on the eastern side of Northampton Street in the Highway Business District. We're surrounded primarily by commercial uses and an undeveloped parcel just to our south, which is where you can see the approximate location of an intermittent stream sketched here in blue. What McDonald's is looking to do, like I mentioned, is pretty minor maintenance. They'll be replacing their drive-through features, which are located on the far side of the site from the intermittent stream, replacing the accessibility routes, sidewalks, parking spaces, and creating a new connection to the sidewalk, just to ensure the site meets all ADA compliance, as well as AAB. And lastly, they'll be refacing the building to bring it up to speed with their current branding standards. We were alerted to the presence of a potential intermittent stream shown here in blue via GIS and USGS mapping. We've approximated its location on our plan based off that same mapping. We've also highlighted the 100-foot buffer. With it being an intermittent stream, there is no riverfront area, so only a 100-foot buffer. The existing limits of development come to closest to the stream about here, at about 120 feet. Our limit of work is going to be about 30-40 feet beyond that, so about 150 to 180 feet away from the stream. All work is within the existing paved area. We're not expanding the pavement out beyond what's already there. We will be installing appropriate erosion controls at the outlets from the site to ensure that there are no erosion or sediment concerns going to the potential resource area. And like I said, it's a pretty minor maintenance thing. This is the only board review that we'd be going to. We just wanted to make sure that there were no issues with our, or lack thereof, of impacts to the intermittent stream. So I don't know if the commission has any questions. We did have a pretty productive meeting on site earlier this afternoon with a few of the members. I can answer any additional questions you may have or anyone else.
Are there any comments from the site visit? And can we state for the record who from the commission was present for the site visit? Laura, was anyone?
I was there.
Yep, and I was there too.
Okay, great.
And one thing we did talk about was this, you are going to be putting in, what did you describe it as again?
They're called a silt, like it's on another sheet out there. Essentially what it is it's an erosion control device that has like a sticky bottom on it. So we'll actually lay that right on the pavement, and then it has a triangle dike essentially to stop erosion and sediment that could be going out. The reason we chose that approach, instead of cutting a silt fence in at the bottom of the slope here and having disturbance in grass areas, we're just going to install erosion at the outlets to the site in the paved area. So again, all of our work stays in our pavement and not disturbing any grass.
Do you have a detail of that?
We have it on the erosion control plan. I can have a reduced size copy here.
What was that word again? Sediment?
It's called a silt dike, D-Y-K-E. I believe that's right.
Yeah, there's forms too. In the
There's roughly what that looks like. So this will get installed. This ridges up. D-I-K-E. That ridges up in the middle there, so it creates a small elevated barrier. Any erosion that would potentially work through the pavement area will just get caught in that.
And it gets installed on the pavement surface?
Gets installed on the pavements. There's the bottom strip of it is a adhesive material that will get stuck down. It just works better in pavement areas than traditional silt fence or wattles would.
And the site doesn't have any catch basins?
It does not, no.
Right, they're just curb cuts?
There's just 3 curb cuts leaving the site.
Okay. And is there a USGS site locus? That's the only other question.
I believe there was one provided.
the last one.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Okay.
Scale.
Can't
You have a
make anything
ruler?
out.
I do. You remember? Okay, what's that?
Is the
Exactly.
stream
Yes.
mapped?
It's not mapped as a perennial stream. It's mapped as an intermittent stream.
Sure, does it have a watershed size of a half square mile or greater? Do we know?
I don't believe so.
I don't know.
I would have to
pause and check pretty quickly.
Okay.
Only because that's what determines perennial versus intermittent, so how it's shown, and then if it's shown as intermittent or not shown, how big its watershed size is, and then depending on its watershed size, a 99% duration flow rate of 101 CFS or greater would push it into perennial, even though it's shown as intermittent. So I want to make sure we're not missing a riverfront area where there might be one.
Okay, so what should I do?
Do you want to pause? We'll pause for a moment.
Okay.
I'll stay in your office with you.
Appreciate it.
Be right back.
What's their slogan?
I think it's something like that, isn't it? Breaking off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
Give me a break.
Yes, there you go.
Come to our meeting.
Simon, what's your last name?
Hilt, H-I-L-T-T.
If you all don't mind signing in, that would be great. We're just taking a brief research break.
Yeah, sorry, that was an ugly H. No,
It's totally fine. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't an A.
I saw Deanna at the conference.
How was the conference?
It was great. I learned so much. I did.
I believe it. I know, I've always wanted to go, but it just feels like a big commitment.
Ow!
Anything in particular that we should know?
Nope. I think morning was site visit. I do effective site visits. Afternoon was DEP
Good
rate.
heavens.
Yeah.
Give me something.
Okay, yeah.
Cassie went, so it was just me and her.
Yeah, yeah, sweet Dan.
Oh, yeah. Dan is-
Uh,
he was still on my commission too.
Kind
He
of
is.
farther than I
The
thought.
sign's off. Yeah, he is.
Devon's.
Oh, like off route too.
Okay.
How long does that take?
In Westfield.
An hour and
I used
40
to work
minutes.
there
Oh,
before.
wow.
So,
For you, the VP.
VP. How many letters do I have? VP.
So was the site visit totally different today because of all that you learned?
I learned so much that it was the best site visit ever.
Wow.
The big decision was, french fries or no french fries.
I'm very happy with it.
You're really good at a site visit in that way.
No problem.
The smell of
Solar field?
fried grease was so
Solar field?
No, we're doing.
top of the can.
A little bit of gravel.
Ask you guys.
Don't ask me, I
Well, he was very close.
So this is where we left.
Like sometimes go to have the work from home a lot or out of the truck.
If they're working all around, if there was nothing over here that we needed to look at now. It's strictly where the blue is.
yeah.
I couldn't make the map any bigger, I only,
They did everything for a
so
firm.
this is the option.
Have not said anything after it.
And it is nice.
No, that's not,
It's the other
I
side.
don't see up here.
I don't understand.
Thank you. 0.23 square miles. So, can you make a note in the
Yes.
record?
What was the limit that was? Oh, great.
Thanks, Simon. So it is not, does not have a riverfront area. So, with that, I don't have any further questions. So the question before the commission is whether the work depicted on the plans referenced below is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. based on the intermittent stream status and the work being over 100 feet from stream, appear not, so. What do you think? 1 negative? 1.
Motion to issue a type 1 negative determination that the area described in the request is not an area subject to protection under the Act or the buffer zone.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, and if you want to wait a moment, we can copy this and give it to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, once everyone's done signing.
And if anyone is interested in some candy or pistachios, they're welcome to do so.
Well, I know more
Unless you're
about
allergic.
sediment types. So is it something that sticks to the pavement surface?
Yeah.
So you don't have to stick it in?
Correct.
Cool.
I've never heard of that either.
Serious
Yeah.
and sticky stuff. Strongest posted media.
Take it out.
Going by. Always have to be different. So, that may or may not have chocolate crumbs on it right now. You're welcome to sign.
No, fine.
I don't have anything to do with your source records, so I'm fine, right?
First.
So you're clear.
Associated with the type there.
Yeah, well, what?
Is this new or is this from the meeting? It's new, right?
We're confident.
All right, thank you.
Awesome.
Do you need a pen?
No, I got it, man.
I just, they brought it out, I'm sorry.
Oh.
If you need it.
I got my astronaut pen, remember?
No.
What's the language?
I can write water.
Determination, negative determination, it's not an area.
Area subject to,
Just saying.
it's not an area subject
I should
to.
say that.
Like everybody leaving, digging.
Yes.
Or the buffer zone?
Yeah.
Very
It is. So cute.
No. I don't think this is important to know.
Cassie was trying to figure out the payment for GA. Oh, I meant to pay that because
I think
No.
you can,
Yeah.
we already signed it.
Because it wasn't, it wasn't, we weren't reviewing the, we were reviewing the filing by the.
Something for like that, that's all right.
For some reason I read her email as like the
Extra
commission had to pay.
Work for something.
Well, it was in a,
It
it
goes
was in
into
our
escrow.
building.
Impact,
Goes into escrow
and
account. And then the matter, one of the reasons it was selected that was because it was lump sum, which
I
means
don't think
that's what it is,
yeah.
yeah.
Only because it wasn't.
There you go. Oh, thank you, are you all set?
I just.
All right,
Yeah.
due to a professional conflict of interest, I will be recusing myself for the next item, and Julie will be chair. Let me know when I can come back.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability filed by Eversource Energy for line 1962, the electrical utility right-of-way within maps 158 and 111, lots 9 and 42. Applicant is seeking a determination of applicability for work related to maintenance of electrical transmission structures and existing access roads. Could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Simon Hill, representing Eversource. I don't have large printed plans with me, but essentially what we're discussing here tonight is 2 areas where we're proposing some minor improvements to facilitate some maintenance of the existing 19 to 62 transmission line, which runs between Midway Substation, which is over by the Oxbow, and Gunn Substation, which is off of Belt Street. The 2 areas, one of which is off of East Street here, showing the existing transmission line crossing through here. And essentially, what we have is there are several transmission structures, the large steel utility poles have been identified that are leaning a bit because the conductor wires are on one side of the structure and it was built to support conductor on both sides. So what we need to do is essentially right those structures by excavating a little bit of the fill around the base and then putting in a new guy wire support, essentially to pull it back into plumb. So there are 3 structures that are affected by this RDA here that are going to be replumbed, and 1 structure that's going to be replaced entirely. This is this structure right here, number 28. So essentially, what the subject of the RDA is this section that is in this sort of red and white line type here, which is basically there's an existing access that is sloped. And in order to do this work, you can see this orange hatching, we're in rare species habitat, so we've got rare snakes and rare turtles here, so we're going to be doing the work. We're confined actually to post November 1st, between November 1st and March 31st. So that time of the year can be challenging with weather. Typically in some sloped applications we would use construction matting, which would allow us to get where we need to go. But because of the time of year and because of the grade of this slope, we're actually proposing to do some grading and install a section of gravel road. There was a photo in the application that illustrates something what a gravel road looks like. So that's what this section is here. It is roughly 100 feet long. So that is one location that we're talking about here. And then the second one is off of Underwood Avenue. So essentially this is just before Route 91 passes over East Street. We'll be coming up Underwood. There's an existing route that has been graded in previously for access up the slope there, but again, it's another steep slope. So we're going to be accessing up that way, and then when we get to the structure that we need to actually do the straightening of, this area here is a maintained lawn in our right of way. So we'll be starting timber mats right at the edge of that lawn here, and we enter into buffer zone. We'll be spanning across this one wetland here, and then when we get to the structure that we need to straighten out, the activity that we're bringing before the commission is just some potential grading in that area. We're actually going to be using tracked equipment to facilitate the work, but it is potential that we're going to need to do a little bit of grading just to allow the machinery to get in there. So that's what we're talking about. It's roughly a 50 by 50 foot area in which some grading may occur. After the grading, we would stabilize the area with a native seed mix and use straw mulch to basically stabilize the soils. So again, both of these locations are within buffer zone to BBW, and this area over by Underwood would be completely restored after work. Again, we'd be using timber mats if needed, otherwise just using the ground conditions as is. This section here off of East Street, that 100 foot or so section of gravel road up the slope there would remain after the work is completed. Mike accompanied me on a site visit there last week to take a look at both of these areas. Any thoughts or comments?
No, just about the snakes and the copperheads or whatever. So it's in the RDA that you're going to go to the national habitat for impacts?
Yep. So we have we've submitted a MESA checklist to National Heritage, and a few of the things that fit into that plan are essentially doing the work during that time of year window. So that's again between November 1st and March 31st. Realistically, our outage timing with this transmission line, we've got an outage in mid-November and then another one in early December, which will be when we actually do the line work, the maintenance work itself. So everything that we're proposing here should be wrapped up and restored by the end of the year.
Will we get a copy of their response?
From National Heritage?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't formally, because this is not a notice of intent, so it wasn't part of the filing, but we can certainly provide that to you if you'd like.
Okay.
I mean, typically, if we filed a notice of intent, it would be a streamlined where we would essentially CC Natural Heritage on the notice of intent, and then you couldn't close this hearing until they provided a determination. But since it's just an RDA, it's not actually required to do that.
And the reason for the RDA, you're claiming that you don't have, or the conservation has jurisdiction?
Nope.
Because you're a public utility?
No. So essentially, why we're proposing an RDA is because we think that the work we're doing is not going to alter a resource area. So
Okay.
You're fully in buffer zone.
yes, everything is. This section of the access road where we're proposing to grade and gravel is downslope of the wetland. So basically, the slope climbs up this way, and the wetland is sort of at the top here. It does kind of drain down this direction. So we will use, we'll definitely install sedimentation barriers along the way here, potentially a water bar or two along this section of road, which would probably drain this direction, again, further away from the wetlands. But otherwise, all of the access that we're going to be proposing to reach this structure and then one beyond it would be using timber mats, which are viewed by Mass DEP as a best management practice and a contemporary impact. So those are just laid flat on the ground if you're not familiar with the timber mats. Essentially a 4x16 mat made of timbers bolted together that we use to lessen the ground pressure of machinery that are driving across them. So it lessens soil compaction and vegetation disturbance.
And the timber mats can't be used in that stretch because of the slope?
Because it's too steep. They even in the best conditions, if they get wet at all, they are very, very slick, particularly to tract equipment. So because it is a slope of something like that, it would be very treacherous to try to do that. And given the time of the year, especially if we have frost or something, it would just be very, very hazardous. So that's
Does this request include the work in the middle of the project, in between the 7 miles, that you don't know how you're going to get to?
No, so the 7 miles referenced in the RDA is the greater project. So that 7 miles is the entire length of the transmission line between one substation and the next. So over by the Oxbow on Route 5, over at the gun substation on Phillips Street, that's the entire thing. There are several other structures that are going to be replaced that are completely outside of buffer zone or front end of the resource that are just not subject to review by the commission. There are a number of structures where some of the hardware on the structures is going to be replaced. We're actually going to use a helicopter to do a lot of those so that we don't have any ground disturbance. In those cases, the residents in those areas have been notified, the town officials have been notified. So that's actually one of the ways we're minimizing our impact within rare species habitat is using the helicopter. So the subject of the RDA are just the areas where we actually have ground disturbance. We're proposing ground disturbance within a buffer zone to BVW and bank, as the case may be.
Okay. I just didn't know with the submittal for the habitat, the endangered species, if we'd get a copy of their determination. It seemed like we would.
You would, and normally with an RDA, but we were happy to provide that to you. It's not anything that we're trying to keep secret. And we've actually worked with them on this project for the past 2 years, where originally we had thought that these leaning structures might need to be replaced entirely. Our engineering division determined that the structure's integrity is actually good. They just need to be righted so that they're not potentially going to fall over. So in the beginning, when we thought we were going to need to replace the structures, we had a much more invasive work plan that required a lot of grading to bring in cranes and all sorts of things to actually replace the structures. Being that we can use tracked equipment, we've actually identified a tracked vacuum unit. If you've ever seen a vac truck, it's a humongous thing. We found out that there is a tracked unit version, so that actually allows us to do much less of the grading that we would need to get this thing into certain areas on the slope of Mount Tom. We identified an off right-of-way access through private property where we've got an agreement with the landowner that allows us to take sort of a shortcut to the right-of-way, avoiding wetlands that way. So we've done essentially everything that we can to avoid and minimize impacts to the rare species. But we can certainly provide you a copy of the determination, which we expect in the next week or so, I think.
What are you doing with the back truck?
So these structures, are leaning something like this. Some of them are as much as like 7 feet out of plumb at the top. So what we basically need to do is our engineering division has determined that a vac unit would be the most safe and efficient way to excavate the fill at the base of the structure. So immediately, most of these structures are actually embedded within a 48-inch culvert, essentially a corrugated metal pipe. So we need to suck out the fill material that is inside of that pipe in order to allow the structure to be pulled back over, and then attach a new down wire, a guy wire, to probably either a screw anchor or a block anchor that'll be installed in the ground. So that's what the vac unit is for. It's actually to remove that fill, which it holds in its own contained reservoir, and then we can either reuse that to recompact the fill at the base of the structure, or haul it off-site and dispose it appropriately.
So the only material that will be left behind would be the riprap for the road?
The gravel at this location, yeah. And so it's a sub-base of riprap, kind of what you see there, and then it's top dressed with more typical gravel road material.
And the anchors for the guy wire, those are also in buffer zone or outside of resources?
There will be some in buffer zone, but they are exempt, they're viewed as exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act by DEP, as it's part of the structure.
At the beginning of the structure, it looked like, if you're walking out to the left, it's a steep slope to the homeowners, right?
We're talking about the one on East Street or Underwood?
East Street.
Okay.
There's a steep slope. Any impacts with runoff or going down there?
No, we're not anticipating any. I mean, there's again, the area that we're proposing to put in this gravel road is about 100 feet long. We use our standard, best management practices in order to make sure that there are not runoff issues. So with this grade and this length of road, I imagine 1 or 2 water bars may be called for, where that actually is part of the road that kind of takes a little bump, essentially, to kick any runoff into a vegetated, stable area, uplands.
Just seemed kind of steep right there with the homeowners on the left-hand side, walking up the road.
Yep, I mean, as you can see from the aerials here, none of the homes are within 200 feet of the area that we're going to be working, so it's all essentially forested there. So we don't anticipate we're going to have any issues with water runoff problems.
And there's a slope on the opposite side on Underwood too.
There, we're not proposing any permanent gravel. Again, that the impacts that could potentially happen on the Underwood side of structure 53007 would just be some grading to allow, because the structure is something like this, and the slope sort of goes like this and up this way. So there may be some need to do some minor grading just to allow a stable work surface for the machines that need to get in there. But we're not proposing to leave any gravel, so it'll be fully permeable, stabilized after we're out of there, and the work itself shouldn't take more than a few days to complete.
And all of the temporary impacts that are shown on here are the swamp maps?
On where?
Temporary impacts to wetland areas, those are all, it's hard to see what they're pointing at.
Yep. Yeah, the anything within wetlands is just laying those construction mats on the ground. And there is a road through that section, but it's not quite wide as we'd need, so that the mats kind of overhang into the edge of the wetland.
And how are you spanning the stream at this other point?
Essentially, so again, mats are timbers that are roughly 12 by 12, 16 feet long, 4 feet bolted together. They'll lay a couple of those, 1 or 2 on either side of the stream as abutments, essentially, and then they will span across that using the timber mats to basically bridge over that section. The part that Michael and I walked across was roughly 4 or 6 feet wide, so a 16-foot mat has no problem getting across there.
Other questions? You may have said, what are you planning to do for erosion and sediment controls?
In these areas here, it would probably be silt fence and straw bales. If we have lower gradient areas, sometimes we'll use straw wattles, but for anything higher gradient, we use the double barrier like that.
Okay.
But again, I mean, at the East Street section, we're actually, the proposed earth disturbing work is down gradient of the wetland. At the Underwood side, it is slightly up gradient, so that would be a more important area to keep in mind.
Any further questions? Michael?
Did you see these? I don't think I have that.
Somebody care to make a motion?
Sorry, I'm so processing. You're just testing.
I don't think I can make the motion because I'm acting as
We're
chair.
requesting a -3 because we recognize that we're in buffer zone, but we feel that our activities will not alter wetlands.
And we can condition with number 3, so we can mention the erosion controls as they were.
Do we also wanna mention getting the report from Natural Heritage?
Okay. All right, I move that we make a negative determination of applicability number 3. Work described in the request is within the buffer zone as described in the regulations, but will not alter an area subject to protection under the acts. Therefore, said work does not require filing of a notice of intent, subject to the following conditions: erosion controls as described by Mr. Hilt, and providing the commission with the natural heritage report.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Type that.
We should be able to get you this in a few minutes if you want to wait.
Well, great, thank you.
Yes, yeah, once it's all signed, I'll copy
I'm
it.
gonna break me off a piece of that.
Please.
Thanks, Cassie, and welcome.
Oh, yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
I don't think I found any ticks on me.
I just had those, I had two
God.
ticks, so. But in that stretch, I have found dozens on me before, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, I found a few on me. Now I have to have after other visits. In bad places.
We get to make Melissa come back in, or she get more free time?
We can let her back.
Yeah, once it's, I'm gonna go to copy it all.
Did you just sign more than one page? Or you were just
I was filling in the conditions.
Okay, do you have the language memorized for number 3?
The determination of applicability type 3, that the work is in buffer zone but will not alter an area subject to protection under the act. I don't know if that's a direct quote, but that's it.
Close enough.
All right, I'll be right back.
And then note of conditions. Welcome back.
Yeah, so Club Austin is really good. It's completely packed full of cars tonight on a Monday night. It's a little Thai place, or no, Vietnamese place, in my
Yeah.
street, Florence.
Oh, on non-inter.
Riverside.
Riverside.
Or Riverside.
Yeah, Bay State Village.
That's such a funny little
Where?
spot.
It is.
Plymouth Street Bridge, Northampton.
Is that the one that's closed? No.
Not anymore.
The bridge
Oh,
was
it's
closed.
open? It's
Yeah.
open again.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Give it a couple of years. Get close
The
again.
Well, the previous closure was one of the reasons the other place didn't survive, many other reasons, but.
Walk the cliff.
The bridge, structural
It's
deficiencies.
one of the 10 oldest, or 10 remaining iron truss bridges left in the country, in fact.
They just closed Division Street Bridge in Great Barrington, which is a worn through truss.
Oh, nice.
Is it right at that bend?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was like,
It was
It's
bamboo for
building-
several years, like
building-
way more
It's like a
longer
brewery
than I
store.
expected. Yeah, it was in the East for a long time.
What's the brewery?
Building it. You're in the office bar, it's a great little
Yeah.
bar. Thank you. El Camelito in Easthampton, though, that place. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Perfect, thanks.
I think, is this your copy, Michael? You were passing me pieces of?
Yeah, I was feeding you intermittent.
I believe we have a request to continue our next hearing.
That is correct, for the
Alright.
bundle NOI.
Oh, here's an error.
Uh-oh.
Our next meeting is November 4th, correct?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What did I do?
It didn't, we didn't
It's not
update it.
usually.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So,
Forgot that part.
motion to continue the public hearing for the bundled notice of intent filed by the Easthampton, City of Easthampton, Mass DP by number 151307 for various routine non-exempt maintenance activities to November 4th, 2019 at 6 p.m.
Second.
You
All those in
gotta
favor?
move it.
Is there a
I'm not
motion?
moving.
I motion as stated by Chair Cody.
Michael?
Can we do that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay. All right.
Will you pause for a second?
Yes.
The woman who was here last time for 19 Wilmotco, she said she wasn't gonna make it today. I didn't know if she needed to be here to carry on, or
Why
not.
don't we, as we can, because our agenda is, everything starts at 6,
Yeah.
I'm gonna suggest to the board that we move on to the next item for which there
Yeah.
are people waiting.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I think we'll have some deliberation for that, so probably be less.
Standing offer, by the way.
Invoke,
Yeah.
oh, wait, I was
Oh,
gonna do it the other
Cheryl.
way.
Can't say
Okay,
no.
hold on.
Either way.
Yeah.
Either way.
Nope, nope.
Best time of the
Yours
year.
makes sense.
We can just throw them on the floor.
That might not be well received, especially if there's an allergy.
At least they're not red.
True.
Do that.
Red
This is
Thatcher,
the
you don't remember them?
Ferry Street mowing.
Just dyed them.
Yeah, she used to dye 'em. Like
I don't
that
know
fingers
why.
used to be all dyed red.
No one's allergic to pistachios, correct?
No.
Okay.
They're not nuts, are
You
they?
got peanut butter right there.
Oh,
It's probably worse
True,
than.
we have all
I feel like
sorts of-
that's more contained than.
I'm like,
around.
I'm eating
Yeah.
peanuts and.
Oh, peanut M&Ms. too.
This Wilmelco Way,
We're gonna move on.
we are gonna come back to it though,
We
that's my
will come
question.
back to
Okay.
it, yes, but for now,
Let me
we're going
just-
to advance to.
Bookmark it, okay.
Compliance update, I
Where are
suppose.
we going?
Compliance update, it is 7M, I believe.
Did you say F? F.
N.
No,
No.
N.
N.
N is speaking
M
solar.
as in.
M. M is in Mary.
Yeah, that's a better word.
M is in Nancy.
Exactly.
Okay. Anyone? No?
Beacon Solar?
No, M is in Mary.
Oh, Mary.
Which is not what I have.
Third Street. Okay. That's what you sent out?
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is that letter I sent you guys.
Oh, with the dam, okay.
Yep.
The mowing.
Easthampton has a history of building roads over dams. Cottage Street, Berry Street.
Why would that be a problem?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Who knew?
1955. Who knew?
Is this in association with the Ferry Street project or something different?
It's roadway improvements.
Is there a spare copy of the letter?
Here, I printed one.
This is Jay's computer, does anybody know, does he have the agenda on here so I can just copy and paste it in?
No.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if this, she wants to copy it into the Word document. I think, probably not. Cause I haven't touched it. Jay gave it to me last week. I've not touched it since.
Alright, this is, I am ready to go, but things are gonna take a while at some point, cause I've gotta catch up with
admitting being wrong.
We'll catch up later.
Yeah.
That's a future you. All right, so we are, as discussed, we are jumping ahead to agenda item 7M, City of Easthampton, Mass DEP file number 151303 for roadway improvements and maintenance of Ferry Street and Pleasant and Lovefield Streets intersection. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please, you're welcome to join us at the table. There's no one in the audience to
Okay.
see anything anyway.
Excellent.
Did you guys sign in?
And if you could sign in
Yes.
and just introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Stephanie McDonald, this is Paul Fergal with McMahon Associates. We were in front of you guys a couple months ago for the Fair Street roadway improvement project, which is basically a redevelopment of the roadway with some utility improvements and a roundabout up at the Pleasant Street and Lovefield Street intersection. Since then, we had we got involved with Office of Dam Safety, DCR, and submitted a Part A application. They got back to us after indicating that Ferry Street is indeed part of the dam, of the Lower Mill Pond Dam, and that they wanted to come out to the site just to see it further. So we met with them on the 10th of October, and they looked at the site for themselves, and the biggest not issue, but the biggest problem they saw was that they couldn't really tell the stabilization of the embankment on the Lower Mill Pond side. The area is overgrown, and they would like further investigation to confirm just the stability of it going forward. So with that, they suggested we mow the area. However, per the order of conditions, there was a condition just saying that this area was needed to be inventoried for invasives prior to any disturbance to it, and that's why we're here today, just to ask the authorization to mow the embankment. Basically, we want to see if there are any depressions, if anything's moved. Historically, there's been trees in that area, so we don't know what it looks like, and that's what Dam Safety wants to know. And there's no evidence right now to suggest like stabilization measures because they couldn't see. So again, I've highlighted the area in green. This area kind of just gets steeper to 1-to-1. There is the existing granite retaining wall along the side. So again, it's on that side, basically to the limit of work that we had shown originally back in August. So there's two things that we were just thinking long-term. We would like the mowing just to expedite getting this Part B application to Dam Safety, and then work with Dam Safety and you guys to come up with a solution based on the findings. We were out there on site again with Dam Safety, and we were able to just kind of move a little bit of a hand test pit. We took pictures, which we have plenty of, and it looks like there is, you can see in this picture and this picture that there is riprap existing. So that's a good sign, but we don't know the extent and again, what measures Dam Safety would like to see. However, if we mow now, again, we're working on the Part B with you guys to come up with an acceptable stabilization plan. So in the spring, we're thinking if Dam Safety is okay with the existing condition and just minor modifications are necessary, then we can do the inventory in the spring of 2020 before any work is done. Because likely any work that we do would be during a low flow of Lower Mill Pond, which would be later in the summer of 2020. And then again, if Dam Safety comes back and a worst case scenario saying it's not acceptable, we need to totally take everything out, there's a potential that the seed bank area would be removed and that potentially we wouldn't need an inventory, but that's later on, I guess in the spring to figure it out. So again, we're just asking to be able to mow the area to find out again more of what the existing condition is like within the embankment.
So this would happen as soon as possible?
Yes.
And this green's just the mowing area? What's the
Yep, that's the
jurisdiction? Is your dam safety jurisdiction, does it go all the way down to?
Dam safety, there's a core wall that's about
Like there were no issues
245
over
feet.
here?
Well, this is like a 1-to-1 slope,
Mm-hmm.
so you can't really mow the area. But essentially, yeah, it's this whole area. Part of our plan was, we're enhancing this with a retaining wall for 66 feet, which is the 1-to-1 area, and then we're gonna have drilled cord piles, 8 feet on center for the remainder, which are these circles that you can see. And that was originally designed just for the integrity of the slope before the dam issue came up. So right now, they're just looking to see this because they said it's not a typical condition. But the core wall, there's history reports that extends, 245 feet.
So the core wall, actually, the dam core wall is located behind the sidewalk. It starts approximately where the bridge limit ends and continues for about 340 feet or so. That's what defines the core wall. It probably goes down 24 feet or so behind the sidewalk. There is, as Stephanie mentioned, there is an existing granite block wall that's dry laid that's up against this embankment area that we discussed previously at our NOI. And this is the section that we've permitted to have them rebuild as part of the stabilization of this area.
What equipment would they be using to mow?
It's anticipated it's gonna be probably like a landscaper's gonna go out there with hand equipment, not hand being, they're gonna have probably some trimmers, or it's not gonna be like a long arm or anything of that nature that's gonna reach over. So we did coordinate with DPW on them potentially doing that using the equipment that's been previously used on site, which was a long arm reached over and just mowed the area. However, based on further coordination with DPW, they're not able to do that area to the likings of our investigation. So the procurement department's looking to get some quotes to have somebody go down there with hand equipment, trimmers, and other non-vehicle equipment to trim it.
And what would happen to everything? I mean, there's a lot of vegetation there. Where will it go? Will it be removed? Will it just be let to fly into a pond, or?
Be removed is the game plan. Maybe a vac truck.
You can borrow it.
Yeah. I don't think we wanna get down there with the tracks, right?
So one of the questions is it acceptable to the commission to defer completion of the invasive species inventory assessment until the next growing season to facilitate this work occurring in a timely manner for dam safety inspection?
What was the timeline that we had originally set?
It was a pre-construction condition.
So it would still be happening. And why could that not be done before mowers go out?
Why could the pre-construction?
Why could the inventory not be done before the mowers go out?
It would be incomplete, given that this area was mowed recently, a couple months ago. And there hasn't been really any substantial growth as we understand. The prime time to inventory would be sometime in June with the growth that's there today, so.
You lost me a little. You said it had been recently mowed and there's been no substantial growth since. So why do we need to mow?
Because it's not to the depth for us to evaluate the condition of the embankment. So it's still, there's some growth, but it's not to the level that's acceptable for us to evaluate
These are current photos?
These were taken
throughout
Last
the last
summer.
year. So the most current one, I think, is the one that,
So, 7, 8.
so this one is, 2 weeks
Okay.
ago, 2 weeks ago,
when the safety was out with us.
yeah.
But not this one.
No, that's from,
That's-
that's from January or February, actually, it's from December of, last year. Get a single device on the, forming of the pond.
Mhm.
It looks like when this photo was taken, there was some mowing activity late fall based on,
So we'd still be looking at pre-construction inventory, we're just pushing off when pre-construction is.
Basically.
I'm fine with
if I may clarify, the pre-construction meaning of this particular area, not the remainder of the project.
Well, there are pre-construction requirements built into the order.
Right.
So how many pre-construction meetings does the city anticipate having?
Well, I guess, when you look at this situation here, we're asking for us to be able to mold this, to evaluate.
Mhm.
It's plain as that.
Right, but your comment, I guess, is a little confusing in that you're talking about, is there a phasing or a sequence for construction? And you would anticipate some aspects of the beginning before other pre-construction requirements are satisfied?
There's gonna be no construction in this area.
What aspect of the project would you be talking about? Is we're trying to figure out, like, when there
So the
are people
phasing-
out there
sure.
working,
Sure, absolutely.
that's construction.
Well, it's,
Right. Priorities.
so there's some critical components that, need to be done this year that include utility connections to the building. There's a water main connection that we anticipate that needs to happen in the next 30 days or after it's awarded, based on the contract documents to supply service to one ferry. There is also some other water main work that's identified as well. There's a 12-inch main that's going to be going from the middle of the road into the building foundation, and then ultimately continuing on, which is not part of this, but we're stopping at virtually the property line. There's a potential for some stormwater work, but we haven't discussed that with the contractor. But the priority items that we see happening this year include these 2 water main connections. And then there's some work that's potentially outside of the jurisdiction zone, that's related to power service to be connected to a future transformer that's closer to the love field side of the project.
And where's the buffer zone following this?
Here's the buffer zone, this is the conduits and the vault, so it's outside.
So barring the need to mow this, how were you planning to meet the pre-construction requirements to get that work done this year if the right time to do the inventory is June of next year?
One of the things that we're working with that popped up was the Dcr Coordination, which threw a wrench into the equation. We were initially going to have this done this year before construction started. But given the fact that we don't expect the contractor to be mobilized for a few more weeks, and first of all, we don't have an awarded project yet. But one of the issues that we have is timeline for one ferry that we're concerned about getting the service in order for them to meet their development goals. That's tied into this project. We were looking to come back well, not come back, but supply Conservation Commission with our findings of that report. And that was built into the contract with the contractor who's doing the work. So that was a line item that we had as part of the project's.
Why wouldn't you inventory it now before it dies off, and then in a month or two, the growth will be gone because of winter?
Based on the way that we set up the contract, that was a condition that we had pushed off to the contract based on coordination with the city.
Is there urgent need for
Yes.
DCR?
Yes.
How long does it take to inventory the plants as a precondition before mowing?
I think this probably sets us out several weeks because we have to award the contract. We need to have a tee up with the contractor to get this work done. And that's something that is critical with our DCR schedule. And also, frankly, one of the conditions that Stephanie identified potentially at a later date, we might think that one of the conditions that DCR comes back at, and not to get into the weeds, is actually totally removing all of that existing riprap that's there and reconstructing it with a new armored slope. But that's speculation, and that's something that we would expect to coordinate with DCR and the Conservation Commission to make sure that both entities are met, their conditions are met.
I think the thing I would want to keep track of with that is, and obviously DCR and administering the dam safety regulations, that's their purview, and there are considerations to allow for that because it's a safety issue. But what that would mean to the work limits and proposed impacts, you know, if that would stop at the upper boundary of bank, or would that extend into land underwater? In order to,
Yeah.
not saying it will or it won't, I'm saying that needs to be something that we're very cognizant of, because there are limits to what the commission can authorize through an amended order of conditions if there were to be changes that warranted an amended order of conditions, and increasing impacts is something we can't do.
Understood, and we don't anticipate, we understand that this triggers other concerns that include
Corps of
Army Corps,
Engineers.
right? So there's an evaluation that's necessary of the existing conditions in order for us to document the conditions and to report it back to DCR, and then to evaluate a suitable approach that meets everyone's concerns.
I understand what you're saying too, Michael, is the field work itself is not the issue with regard to scheduling and timing. The issue are the way the contract's been established.
Cultured.
So the contract, the way the contract is set up is the contractor is responsible for satisfying that requirement versus the city paying out of pocket. Is that a fair summary?
Right, so this is funded by MassWorks with the state funding, and the approach that the city elected to do to accommodate the conditions is to pass it down to the contract rather than come out of the city's pocket.
So while it's a bit frustrating, I think administratively, the same endpoint would be achieved, provided that the material, the vegetative material is collected and removed from the site. If it were to be cut at this time, because there is clearly a mix of invasive and native plant species here. And theoretically, the cut material could enter the water body and flow downstream.
Spread it.
And while this one site won't be the solution, it doesn't need to make anything worse. So. What do we wanna do?
What is our process? Is there a
Right now,
formal-
there's, I mean, we
there's
can
nothing
motion,
formal, right?
make a motion and have it be part of the minutes. That we are waiving the pre-construction, the timing of the pre-construction requirement, but not the actual condition of special condition 17 for inventory of non-native and or invasive plant species. And that to facilitate inspection to satisfy the requirements of dam safety.
Did DCR come up at all during the meetings prior? Were they involved
No.
up until this point? So
No.
this is a new discovery that this project is within their purview?
Correct.
Did this intersection project go through NEPA? Or no? Just curious.
The project collectively with 130 was reviewed by NEPA. Yes, to answer your question, it did go through NEPA. I know DCR had a component in there, but that never came up. No, the first person who asked that question.
John, what to tell you?
When we ask for something to be removed from the site, what does that mean?
What do you mean?
I mean, where do you dispose of it?
A
In a legal
proper facility?
manner.
Okay. But we don't clarify that.
No, we don't dictate how we set the performance standard and they have to meet it.
Cool.
How they meet it's up to them.
So I have a motion to waive the timeline, but not the intent of the work behind special condition number 17, delaying it in order to allow for the mowing that's necessary for DCR to make their dam inspection.
Is there a second?
Do we want to put the condition that everything is removed from the site?
Would you like to amend your motion?
I will amend my motion, not emotion, to state that all cut materials shall be removed from the site and disposed of properly and not allowed to enter the water body.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
So moved. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. They're just different numbers
We
from
have
the
them.
report.
Oh.
Because I blew them up
Do you
and
guys want
Oh,
these?
tried to be a
You guys want
puzzle.
more paper?
Can you?
They're the same pictures, just
Oh,
reading
no.
numbers
Special
in case
condition
we're
number
talking
17.
points.
No, we didn't reference them in the minutes, so we're good to go. All right.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for hearing me.
Problem.
You want the Kit Kat, Steve?
No. What am I doing?
The best one is though the pretzel M&Ms.
Oh, I haven't had that.
Those are, never had it?
that.
Ah,
I already did.
hands down.
I like the
We're
caramel.
gaining some new friends after that.
Caramel M&M.
Yeah.
Mm. Good night. Thank you.
Bye. You have a nice night.
Yeah.
All right. Back to normal order of business. And let's see how rapid fire we can go.
Well,
And
I have all these updates now, so.
Oh, boy,
Okay,
okay,
it's gonna be
rapid.
pretty tricky because I don't have anything on here that,
Well, maybe you can pause, you can just grab it off the website.
that would be great. Thank you.
If it's connected to the internet, it's a good question, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the old computer didn't connect properly, but.
Or in the email I sent, if that's easier, email it too.
Some kind of real food that I've had, like nothing but sugar today.
So, Wilmelco canceled?
They didn't cancel. She's just, oh yeah, right, let's not forget that.
There may another.
She just told me that she had an issue, and she wasn't gonna be able to make it here today.
So I felt bad because she was here and we didn't have
I
a
know.
quorum last meeting.
Well, they had been
Which is
trying to get,
unfortunate.
yeah, they were trying to get it resolved pre-closing on the new owner, but it's closed, it's okay, so she thinks it's not as dire, I suppose, is the way it seems to be describing. So,
They should
I
have
obviously
been
still want it
here.
resolved, but,
She also had a Southampton meeting, right?
maybe.
There's a
Yeah.
Southampton meeting tonight. I'm just
It
waiting
was
on
a
the
personal issue as well. It was something that, like, it wasn't like an emergency, but it was picking up kids type thing, so.
Like an emergency on my wrist.
What's up? Oh my.
Mhm.
Hope you're
You
alright
been
now.
inventoried? You back okay?
We'll talk later.
Yeah, do we wanna do that next instead, or do you wanna do other stuff?
Jess, where are you with things?
I am looking for the minutes. I mean, the
The agenda.
agenda. Where is it posted?
On the,
Word file though, isn't it?
it will be Word
I
file,
don't
yeah,
know
for
why
whatever
it
reasons.
posted in.
I didn't think it was.
It was
Well,
an
I don't want
attachment.
the whole
Word
file.
Yep, I
attachment.
sent it as an attachment, but then also you just go on the city website, and then that first red box on the left says agenda and minutes, click that guy, and then you get a search, filter the search by conservation.
It's weird, I can't get to that website at work, but I can get it at home.
Sometimes it has a heck of a time loading, depending on where I am, I don't know what's up
It
with
wants me
that.
to log in.
Mm.
Google, I think.
Yeah. No, go to the top.
Oh, do you want my help?
I'll just get it from my email.
Okay.
For the record, Cassie and I went to the conference this
Oh, yeah,
weekend.
Oh,
Mhm.
yep, how was it?
Awesome.
It was really good,
Great.
yeah.
I learned so much.
Lots of info.
What did we take, site visit?
Yeah, site visits and plans,
Mm.
reading. And then, we did the fundamentals of the Wetlands Protection Act, which was, it could have been more, it could have been a day long. It could have been its own thing, I felt.
Yeah.
But a lot of people had very site-specific questions to their situation.
Mm.
Because the woman presenting was super knowledgeable. It was like really apparent that she's like.
Who was-
You have people
it was
on the
amazing.
coast, you know, so they
Yeah.
had dunes and.
Yeah.
Yeah, coastal resource areas are more complicated.
It was the Newton Conservation Agent,
Oh.
and I can't remember her name, but she was,
Oh, it was like, she was a writer,
yeah,
Steele. Jenny
Oh.
Steele.
Yeah, Jennifer Steele. maybe they're related. But she was referencing a lot of things too that I thought might be helpful for us going forward in terms of how they had like a really good like checklist for people
Mm.
with their NOI processing and stuff like that, so I was gonna check it out.
Yeah.
Cause she had some good stuff. They did some stuff differently in that they would, even if someone didn't come, what was it? She was talking about some kind of waiver that, not a waiver, but it was like an administrative agreement that she would have people sign if, like outside of this permitting process, if it didn't fit within the permit. I can't remember the way that she described it or what it was for, but if I look at my notes, it would make sense. So I'll probably be looking into that once things slow down a little bit more and start talking about deliverables for people, like guidance through the process, which would be cool.
Okay, guys, almost there.
Okay. No rush.
I didn't realize how far it was. It's kind of
Where
a
were you?
trek.
Devon's.
Devon.
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't get there from here.
No, you
They
can't.
put this giant water body in the middle and how do you?
I do want to do the Mass Pike,
Yeah, it's
so
up
I'm
on
like,
the
let me
upper
go
two
Route
and
2.
It was the prettier way. It was super pretty.
But
Drive
it
by
was
the
like
Quabbin, it was like
32
stunning.
degrees, all this fog was coming
Yeah.
up,
It was
with the
weird.
sun coming up.
Okay, so we're 4A?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Certificate of compliance for 19 Womelco Way.
Yes, DEP file number 151264. So, question, did you reach out to DEP on this?
I did not. What I
Okay.
did, I had my
What
notes
did you
was that we
find?
were particularly interested in the original notice of intent that was
Mhm.
for Dcr Grace,
Right,
section 5 of the
yeah,
notice of intent. And
their
so I do-
restoration and monitoring requirements.
Yes.
So I'm just curious if there were any, if they demonstrated in any way, shape, or form that they satisfied those requirements.
Right.
Wouldn't the DEP taking the sign down?
DEP doesn't take this, DEP doesn't do anything. DEP doesn't put the sign up, doesn't
Who
take the,
puts the sign up?
the applicant, the permit
Okay.
holder, or their contractor. And they're supposed to keep it up until they get a certificate of compliance. Yeah, the state doesn't
Okay.
administer that at all.
So when you guys went out there, did you see the sign or something, or? Oh.
Yeah, Jay and I visited the site. It looks like no one's been there for a while.
So what would I reach out to, what would DP, if DEP isn't really involved, like, what would they be able to tell us?
Guidance.
Oh, what's it?
So
Okay.
this one's tricky because the person requesting the certificate of compliance is the person who was just trying to sell the property, but they weren't the applicant or the owner at the time that the order of conditions was issued and the work was done.
Right.
So the project had, relatively speaking, for projects in Easthampton, it had quite a few wetlands impacts. And there were supposed to be mitigation in situ to compensate for the impacts of doing the work. Just because you are remediating the site doesn't mean you get a free pass from the mitigation requirements.
Right.
And was this for the rail trail as well, to clean it up?
No, this was Dcr Grace.
Yeah, the
It was
rail
part of
trail's right
EPA.
next to it. though.
I know, I don't recall the sequence there.
Yeah,
Um,
But it was sold to Opa.
Right, and they should have taken care, this should have been resolved at that time, and it wasn't.
And when that came up though, during the,
It's not up to us for that to come up.
No, I mean-
Yeah, it depends on the attorney,
okay.
or the attorneys, and there was, that may have happened before there was case law that kind of validated DEP's position all along, which was that the order, just because the order expires doesn't mean it's not, attached to the title. And you're supposed to get a certificate of compliance regardless of whether or not the order has expired.
It did look like the work was done. I mean, it's fenced off and it's a big mound and Jay seemed, he didn't have any question.
I mean, the other part of it is, what do we think we'd actually get out of pursuing it any further?
He did remember, I think he said he just started when that came across, and I think he said he went for the original visit.
Did you look in these files for 10 O'Neill Street? Is that where you got the NOI?
For 19.
I'm sorry, 19 Lumel.
Yeah, that's where I found all this.
Okay,
Yeah.
and was there anything about like follow-up monitoring reports or?
Not necessarily. I don't even think I have the order of conditions. I just have the NOI, if I remember correctly. Because I think, unless it's in here, but I think that it was just like
Just the binder?
it was weirdly, yeah. Determination, yeah, because then there's multiple
RDA
things
for something within the developed portion of the property.
Yeah, well, and then there was all the different, Green Life had been associated with it before, so there was stuff from them, which is in this folder. And then, but I think whatever was before WR Grace, and then it was WR Grace, and then Green Life, and now it's going to become this smeary real estate, can't remember what they were trying to do with it, but, or it's for Green Life, I suppose, unless they sold it. Yeah, I don't remember finding anything. I remember like everything that I had found, I put like together here, and then there wasn't necessarily. I think the other stuff had been for Green Life. That I
That's what I don't get. did DEP have order conditions to do anything?
D-
It's just us?
Yeah,
That
we
they're looking
administer the state act, so
Yeah.
unless DEP supersedes it and/or it triggers an individual 401 water quality certificate, which it didn't because it was less than 5,000 square feet, it wouldn't have another level of oversight.
How long ago was this?
2010,
9 years ago.
yeah, 2010.
That's when it was originally permitted.
Well, the NOI had been filed in there.
Yeah, they were doing this under an ACO with EPA.
What was the ACO for? What was the goal?
Remediation of asbestos-containing soils.
That's what I got confused about. I thought maybe DEP had something to do with it because of asbestos and a Superfund cleanup and,
Well, that was,
but they're just looking for the work they propose to.
so asbestos is, yeah. Yeah, DEP didn't have a role in the ACO other than, I think they're just being included in all the results because asbestos is with EPA. And because there was a condition of no imminent hazard or substantial hazard under the MCP. They did have a role in the review of the cleanup part of it, not.
So were there reports associated with the cleanup?
We never got anything.
There-
So,
There must have been, right?
oh yeah, but we never got anything.
I wonder if they would have had photos that would give some indication of what was done and how what state it was in 10 years ago when they left it.
They did, Michael, you're right, they did have to do portions of it in advance of the city's railroad, bike path, rail trail.
Is the onus of proving that work was done on us or
No.
to the homeowner?
No, we don't have to
the
issue a
landowner?
certificate of compliance, and it's where I'm a little bit torn. I mean, this is unfortunate that it wasn't done. I think the advice is to get a statement from, in order for the commission to take action, it's not just filling out the 2-page form.
Yeah.
They need to demonstrate that the conditions were satisfied, the work was done, and that the conditions were satisfied. And I don't think we've been provided with any of that information. So I think if they were to ask, what they would need to do is to reach out to, not you reach out to, but the applicant reach out to either any of the contacts listed in this cover letter,
What's the date of that cover letter?
July 26, 2010, from O'Reilly, Talbot, and Oaken, OTO in Springfield. And there are two, Kevin O'Reilly's still there, I don't think he's retired. But there are multiple contacts listed in this cover letter. There's, and whether or not they're still in those roles at EPA and DEP or at OTO is, questionable because it's been 9 years and who knows where they are in their careers. But, some sort of corroborating documentation that the work was performed in accordance with the order of conditions and that the area was restored. And, the requirements of section 5. So that section 5 details the restoration plan, how they were gonna restore the wetland within the footprint that they disturbed to perform the asbestos remediation. So, you know, they were gonna basically reestablish original grades with clean soils. And they were going to seed it. And then they were gonna do 2 full growing seasons of monitoring, including methods to control invasive species. So, clock me out.
I don't know what that was.
Oh, and then they were gonna submit reports to
Yes.
Concom following each monitoring event, no later than December 15th. So, you know, the burden isn't on us to, well, initially it would be to check our files, but I think part of the reason our files are incomplete is because there was never anything provided after that.
Right, yeah, it's
So-
interesting that this is an issue for it to be sold now, but it wasn't an issue to be sold in the past.
It's because somebody screwed up.
Gotcha.
Or the case law, they weren't of the more conservative opinion, and the case law came out after.
Gotcha.
So I think the thing to do is, I mean, I'm not comfortable with the commission signing off on an order of conditions that sets the precedent that you just wait long enough and you don't have to do all the things. So
Yeah.
I think the advice would be to, if you could reach out to whoever filed the request and say, the commission, you know, the request requires documentation that there has been compliance with the order of conditions, including but not limited to the wetland restoration detailed in section 5 of the notice of intent. And then, see.
I mean, I did take some pictures of the site. It's just like a big pound of dirt that's at least 12 feet high.
I don't think those were the original conditions.
That
It
definitely doesn't sound like
it sounds like they made a stockpile.
Does WR Grace still exist?
No.
Yeah.
Not
I
in-
didn't think so. Net form.
Well,
Okay.
they went bankrupt, and
Yeah.
I think they reformed
Hmm.
after.
Motion to continue to the November 4th meeting?
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Do we continue or do we wait for them to show, to?
Well, we continue, we keep it on the agenda.
Mhm.
It's,
I thought they were like monitoring wells with DEP, so. that's
well,
all.
again, those are privately, DEP doesn't install wells.
Yeah.
They
or
just
monitoring
oversee
something.
the,
Mhm.
they oversee the implementation, the administration of the Massachusetts contingency plan.
Hmm.
They don't actually do much, like, the actual field work. Because there's no one to pay for it. So. Okay, are we ready?
Yep.
Enforcement actions.
Woohoo. Okay, so
Bernard Gall, 37 South Street.
I have nothing updated for that.
No updates. Bernard Gall, vicinity Groveland, Florence.
As of June 12th, 2018, DEP found that Gall has satisfactorily complied with the original consent order
As of June 12th, 2019?
of June 12th, 2018.
And therefore,
I don't know, that's
we
the
can take this off the
That was
agenda.
last summer when they
They filed the
screwed
NRED.
up the ANRAD thing.
They filed just enough to get out of the
There were
requirement.
thousands of dollars
So-
of fees.
Just the fact that they filed was enough?
Yep, that's all that was required of them.
Okay.
DEP screwed up.
Can you give me that language again? So as of
Yes.
June 12th, 2018,
June 12th, 2018, DEP, or Mass DEP, found that Gall has satisfactorily complied with the original consent order. And I believe I have like an email, he sent me like a copy of some kind of like official form.
Fallis,
that was
Cameron,
saying-
Stinson.
Stinson.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, so this item will be taken off future agendas.
Stricken from record.
wow.
Okay.
Okay, next, auto properties rear 165 Northampton Street?
I got nothing.
Nothing,
Yep.
okay. Saranac, Westview Terrace.
Hold on.
Oh.
Sure.
Sorry, I thought I had copied no updates, but I hadn't, so I just pasted something
Control
Okay.
Z.
Yes, all set.
Okay. So next, so they, I've been in contact with Kelly Cahill, who's kind of taken over the compliance efforts in place of her father. And she's definitely wants to work with us, and just through speaking with her, she really wants to, she's ready to get back into whatever needs to be done to return to compliance. I know that, you guys had expressed interest in doing a site visit, and she was actually wanting to do that as well, just to see where things are currently, and then what needed to happen going forward in terms of the invasives that had been reported to have been occurring there. And she's definitely very willing to do that, but we just haven't been able to nail down a time yet, and that was gonna be my next thing. I don't have anything coming up for the next agenda necessarily, so that would be the major site visit that still remains to be completed.
Okay.
Just to meet with her and see what we need to do going forward, but yeah, she's very interested and wants to make it right, so, yeah.
Okay. So you'll suggest some dates and times?
Yeah, she gave me, for this coming week, she had given me, sometimes I don't know if it'll be too short notice now, but I'll be in contact with her and see
Okay.
what will be the best time.
Okay. Kaufman, 298 Loudville Road.
Yes, so I have a couple of
October is
places.
pretty much gone.
Yes, yeah, totally. So when I, after they had appeared before the commission, I had sent her a follow-up email just reiterating that we needed to see an NOI to be submitted by the 1st of October before any kind of action could happen on that living wall that her and Mr. Severance had talked about when they had come in. And I did on the, let's see, what day was it that I received an email from her? I believe it was on the 2nd. The 1st or the 2nd of October, I received an email from her saying that, on the 30th. September 30th,
Okay.
she had reached out to me by email, and she said that they will be, in quotes, proceeding with the living wall repair, but will defer to Ed Severance for the design and engineering plans for the living wall. And again, I had not received an NOI in regards to this work by the October 1st deadline. On the 17th, October 17th, I received an email from Mr. Severance stating that the NOI will be submitted by a civil engineer who is designing the project. He could not begin the design or the NOI until we had a contract for the work from the Kaufmans. We just sent out a revised contract to them and expect the signed contract to return to us shortly. As soon as that is received, we will be able to finish the design plan and begin the permitting process.
When did you receive that email?
That was on the 17th of this month.
So that was my concern with her September 30th email, is that, and only because it's happened to me, where a consultant's name gets mentioned as being on board when there's no contract in place. Responsibility still lies with the homeowners, the property owners. The consultant is just their hired professional to do a certain thing. They are responsible for maintaining compliance, hiring a competent individual who can meet their schedule and or communicating. So they need to give us a schedule with certain dates. There's really nothing that could, construction-wise, it would likely be done over the winter anyway, so it's a good opportunity, despite all past timeline issues, to permit things and have it ready to go next year. But they need to propose and request approval of a schedule, and then they need to stick to it. And we need to keep DEP in the loop on this one, because unlike other potential issues which are limited to buffer zone, this one is in riverfront area at the very least. Potential for work in land subject to flooding, potential for work on bank and land underwater, depending on the extent of impacts associated with the design and the violation itself. I think we all pretty much saw the same photos that suggest that the material applied to address the surface has made its way down the slope to the river itself. So if you would kindly send the property owner an email or a letter or both, or an email with the letter attached, but I think stating that the commission in order to move forward in good faith, the commission needs them to develop a schedule, propose a schedule for our approval
Mhm.
and stick with it.
Okay, a schedule of just even the paramedic submitting these things,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, cool. Cool. I will definitely do that.
Yeah, their inability to execute a contract is not our responsibility.
Mhm.
Restroom, we'll set up a forum.
We will still have a quorum, yeah. I don't think you'll miss much. Okay. Complete automotive repair.
Yes, so, that's the new one, so I'm in the process of working with, DEP on, just the wording and what we can do. I have, notified them of the situation, and it seems like definitely there has been a violation has occurred there. So we just need to now communicate with the property owner and kind of go forward from there. The letter is in the works, essentially. But I'm taking care with it, I'm gonna get it right, 'cause it's my first one, so.
And this is one where the commission had reviewed and approved the initial site
Mhm.
development for complete automotive repair in 20,
I can't remember, but they received, oh, you don't have it right here. And they received their certificate of compliance, it's all
right.
done, so to speak. So they got their certificate of compliance in 2011,
Okay.
August 22nd, 2011.
Okay, so it was permitted sometime within 3 years of that. But basically they've encroached upon the buffer zone at the rear of the south end of the building, where they've cut, based on aerial photos, they've cut back vegetation and are using it as an unimproved parking lot of sorts to store vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in the
I don't know if
buffer
you guys want to see
zone.
these pictures again, compared to the,
So, one, it was never part of the original
this
approved
is the vegetative
design, and two, it has been after the
Okay.
fact.
Yeah.
So, they've altered vegetation and buffer zone.
And that aerial photo is from, I think this year, if not last year.
So this is a very recent change.
Yeah, I think maybe.
So, do you think you'll be able to get that letter out this week or next?
I was hoping this week for sure. I'm
Okay.
gonna, I was thinking kind of the sooner the better, and that seemed to be Mark Stinson's opinion as well.
Absolutely.
And is it alright, it's you, I can hand deliver it and go there and just be like, here you go.
You
Or
can.
just say like, hi, sorry, or I don't know.
No,
Okay.
you don't say
No,
sorry.
sorry,
You didn't
but
do
like-
anything wrong. You know,
Yeah.
it's also good, I know it's a little more time consuming, either send it certificate of mail or certified mail.
Okay.
Certified mail, we can see when they get it.
Okay.
Scratch certificate, certified mail.
Yeah, I don't know, when Mark had been talking about it, he seemed to think that there was more of a sense of urgency than not, but I think maybe he was trying to get me to get it on this meeting's agenda.
Yeah,
And
that's
I was
fine.
like, too soon, so.
And we don't necessarily know that the property owner is
Yeah.
going to be at the property. So,
Exactly.
because the mailing address is not 10 O'Neill Street.
Yeah.
So I think you need to send it to the property owner at that
Oh, it
mailing
is, the
address.
mailing address is 10 O'Neill Street.
No, in the
Here's
letter you have drafted?
It's on, at least it is for the certificate of compliance, I can't remember what I put in the letter, I'll have
Okay.
to check.
Yeah, just double check that, but I think it should go certified mail regardless.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, here we
Okay.
go, yeah, I found it. No, I put a different one, yeah, it's Northampton, so.
Yeah, it's like 126 Northampton
Yeah,
Street.
that's what it is.
So it's different than the property.
Okay, cool.
So we will make progress with that. Okay. Are there any open space updates?
I have none.
Okay.
Oh, no, wait, yes,
Okay.
hold on. So this is just kind of what the current situation is, nothing necessarily super new, but, this, for Lathrop community,
Lathrop.
community,
Sorry.
their senior housing, they were hoping to find a way to partner with the Kestrel Land Trust and the Pascomic Trust, but it's still in the works, and so it'll likely be a while before anything comes before the commission in regards to this open space.
Okay. And have you been able to reach out to Land Stewardship Inc. about Equidale?
But I can.
Can that go on your list?
Yeah,
Okay.
so reach out to who is it?
Land Stewardship Inc. There should be contact information in the old email and or preferably a file.
Yeah.
And if you can't find contact information, let me know.
Okay. And it's basically just a general update on,
Well, I think you need to connect with them to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Because the previous agent had taken on the coordination aspect of things, and that coordination wasn't going well.
okay,
So, we just need to kind of like step back up and get this on track.
cool,
Okay.
all right.
Okay. Compliance updates. Ready, set, go?
Yes.
Pleasant Street Mills, DEP file number 151273.
Yes, so I spoke with Jeff and they will be needing an extension. Let's see, Jeff and I did go out there on the 3rd of October. And he does plan to also go out with Dan, the city engineer, as well at some point. It was really in regards to these two kind of, one's a loop and one's not a loop, but it's
Mhm.
these kind of pathways into these, kind of these restoration areas.
Those are stormwater basins.
The stormwater basins, and then, yeah, so, one of them, the one that's not a loop, there was a concern if there's standing water happening in one of the stormwater basins that might not necessarily be supposed to be that way.
No, they're not supposed to have standing water.
Yeah, so yeah, there's kind of, there is more review that needs to happen. And they're gonna be requesting an extension at some point.
They need to request that extension at least 30 days before the date of expiration. So it would be, they need to do it, what is our second November meeting? Anyone know? It's November 4th and,
It's 2 weeks later,
thank
18th.
you. Okay, so the 18th would be the absolute latest we could do something about this. So
Okay.
it's not a complicated process. They just need to make the request.
Cool.
Okay.
November 18th, got it. Yeah, I think he too, I had told him that before, so I think. But either way, it's kind of like coming to the forefront for him, so yeah, I'll make sure that he knows. Yeah. That's all I have for that.
All right. Lathrop, DEP file number 151283, invasive plant management.
I do not have any updates for that.
Okay. Williston Northampton School, DEP file number 151286, cross-country running trails.
No updates.
City of Easthampton, Nashwater Pond, 151288, aquatic veg management.
No updates.
Loven, off O'Neill Street,
Yes.
151287. Has there been, okay,
Yes, so we've contacted Mark Reed, and the wetland he said that the wetland replacement areas, number 1 and 2, were completed in October 2017. They're still monitoring them. And then he also copied me with a project statute summary from May 17th, 2009. Let's see, and then also has been giving me weekly reports, so I have that here. The 2 latest ones, that, since we didn't have the meeting.
2009 or 19?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say.
That's weird.
It's like, yeah.
Oh, way back. But so it has a list of the completed work and the work requiring completions, still. And then underneath are the 2 latest updates, especially the one from the 17th in regards to the rain that occurred.
Yeah, that was 3.6 inches of rain.
We got 3.6 here? Wow.
Well, that's what he's citing. I'm not sure where his rain gauge is located, but across the region, it was anywhere from 2 to 4. So, can you look into the file to see if we've gotten, like, these are not wetland monitoring reports.
Okay.
They should be, you have to look at soil, vegetation, other indicators of hydrology, you have to consistent data plots. What they planted needs to be the vegetation that's coming up.
Yeah.
So, but this is a good summary.
Okay.
Anything else? Other than shaking your head?
If that hasn't, if the wetland monitoring, if the wetland monitoring hasn't been occurring, is it just like you need to start that as soon as possible, or is there like, we need to
still have to do
something?
2 years worth, so.
Right, they
The
need
sooner
to
they start, the
document,
sooner they can
right,
be
they
done.
need to document 2 growing seasons
Okay.
of monitoring.
Sorry, I keep talking you.
So, if they, been going, if it's been going since, what did they say, 2017?
Yeah.
Those wetland areas, they could have fitted, well, they could have one more year. That point, depending on when it got built in 2017, it wouldn't have been a full growing season. So it'd be 2018 and 2019, they could have finished this year, actually.
But they seem to have not started.
But they seem to have not got the documentation, and we can't retroactively document
Right.
that kind of real-time compliance, because if there were any corrective measures to be taken, the ship sailed.
And who has to do that, like, license-wise?
A wetland professional,
Not a surveyor, but,
a professional wetland scientist or somewhere like
Or
that.
qualified, yeah.
And there, I mean, maybe there's a small chance that Mark Reed had been sending them to Mallory, because that, when we get to Holistic Industries, that was the case for those reports, is that they just hadn't been getting sent to an access, an email that anyone had access to. So we retroactively, I mean, we'll get into it then. But so maybe there's some, maybe they have been doing it and it just is being sent somewhere else, so I don't know why he wouldn't have included it that time. Because I
Right.
did, in my email, I asked for that, so. We'll see. Okay.
City of Easthampton, Whitebrook, Broadbrook, DEP file number 151268, maintenance dredging.
No updates.
Wait a second.
Item F.
Oh, sorry, I skipped a whole page. Got it.
Okay, I'm ready for all this.
Okay. Holistic Industries, 155 Northampton Street, DEP file number 151296, parking lot and site improvements and city stormwater permit.
Yes, so, the reports since July 26, 2019 have been getting sent to Mallory's, the former conservation agent's email, and he sent me all of the ones that I was missing.
Oh, that's
And then these are the most recent ones, again, with the one regarding to the recent rain event on top.
Thank you.
How much rain did they say?
Same,
It's the same person.
it's the same company.
Yeah.
It's all Mark. When in doubt.
So they've applied Roundup to Japanese knotweed.
Cute.
What, how?
Spray ball. Oh, the second report.
In buffer zone?
Was that no good? Roundups.
Have to revisit the details, but I don't.
I don't remember
Any
any allowed
discussion
to
of-
use Roundup.
Didn't we require, like, don't you have, didn't we have a discussion of how deep you had to go to get the root matter?
Yes,
I
they were
remember
supposed to
that.
dig it out.
Right,
I
so
remember
that's
asking
a
you
point
almost.
to follow up on.
Okay.
It's still working. No, no, it is not.
Not weed spraying.
So I would say you might have to do some digging through past minutes
Okay.
to find out when we discussed management of knotweed. It may have been during our discussion of special conditions. So we may be able to go back to
Yeah,
the date of issuance of the order
yeah.
or thereabouts.
Okay.
Trying to play Control F. But I do recall having
Yeah.
specific discussion
Discussed it.
of how deep you need to excavate the soil to get the root matter,
Right.
and how deep their roots go, because they can regenerate from root fragments. So just spraying it and killing it at the surface doesn't actually kill the plant.
Okay. And so if,
And they shouldn't have been using glyphosate in your resource area. Or I mean, not glyphosate, they shouldn't have been using Roundup, they should have been using just glyphosate. With surfactants that you should,
That's
are
true.
supposed to use.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
No, I remember it's really going into great detail about how to remove it.
Something.
No, I really, because I don't know anything about it.
Great, can you go back into your notes and tell us what that was?
I could. It was quite a while ago.
Yeah, well, it's
You're a
been a
good
while
note
since
taker.
there's been any conversation.
Yeah, I can, let's see, finds it,
Okay.
but there was talk of spraying.
Right,
Yeah.
it was physical removal,
Yeah.
so that's something that they need to get called out on.
Cool. Yeah,
Cease and desist all use of
learned that.
herbicides
Okay.
and double check, I don't know if we have a special condition to that.
And is that something that, should I just reach out to Mark Reed about it and say, you can't do this, or do we need to write a letter, like an official?
It
cease
can
and
be an
desist letter?
email,
Okay.
I think, at this point, but it would be good to know when that discussion occurred in
Yeah.
detail, just to be able to reference it, but
Okay.
that would be a higher priority. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, ready? One
Mhm.
Industrial Lofts LLC, 1 Ferry Street, tracks 1 and 2, DEP file numbers 298 and 299.
Yes. So we did receive the SWIP. It was received on the 7th of October this year. And the question was, though, that we are possibly still waiting on confirmation from EPA about, I don't know, that they received it, or if there's
The
any other-
ENOI,
Yeah.
so we don't have their NIPD's tracking number yet.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That would come in the ENOI.
Okay, yeah.
So, that would be the follow-up, like, they need to provide their inspection reports, and those inspection reports should reference the ENOI and the NIPD's tracking number.
Okay.
What tracking number? NPDES.
National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NIPD's, and do a construction general permit.
Okay.
I can go more off that out there.
Yeah,
That's
that
right.
was what we were wondering was the next step. And if anyone wants to see this, just let me know. I just didn't print it out, it's 250 pages.
I don't, yeah, no,
Please.
electronically is fine.
Okay. Do you want me to send that to all of you?
If you could upload it to.
Yeah, it's
their-
on- it's
yeah,
uploaded.
don't send it, but having,
No.
well, but it would be good for you to look through it,
Yeah.
because it, given the scale of the site and the nature of what they're doing, it should be a phased plan,
Okay,
or I would expect it to be a phased plan,
okay.
because potential for erosion and sedimentation is going to change significantly, and it's also a previously developed site, which is gonna, function, it'll act differently than a barren field.
Okay.
What's the SWIP?
Stormwater pollution prevention plan, it's basically the erosion and sedimentation control plan that lives with the site through construction under the NIPD's construction general permit.
For all sites greater than an
Acre of disturbance. Yep. Which is why the city's stormwater ordinance has a lower threshold for disturbance. Okay. Easthampton Park Solar 1 LLC, 232 Park Street, DP file number 151293.
No updates.
You concur, Michael?
Okay. No official updates that I have received.
Yes. River Valley Co-op Market, 228 Northampton Street, DP file number 151301.
No updates.
So, point of observation,
Mhm.
while driving north on Route 10, which I apparently don't do that often, I noticed that the entire field south of that had been cut, and the likelihood that that was for agricultural purposes is low, based on
You mean on the other side of the road?
That's,
south of their field, no, the wetland.
No.
they
The
cut
wet
up the
meadow,
whole
they
area.
mowed the whole field.
It's been a week or.
Yeah,
I
it's,
live-
it's been at least a week, so we need to draft a letter to the property owners. That would only be exempt if it were an agricultural activity, which in this case would be limited to haying, and the value of that unmanaged field for hay production that was only cut once in the late season is questionable. So they need to demonstrate that they are have managed it for agricultural purposes, otherwise it's a violation and we're gonna issue an enforcement order.
Okay.
It's a violation because why?
They're altering vegetation in a wetland. That field is like 75% or more wet meadow,
And
bordering on a stream at the south end.
so this is happening on the 228?
This is immediately south.
So it's an abutter's property?
It's the same
Same
owners.
property. Oh,
It's the
gotcha.
it's still a Fedor property.
Okay.
Weren't there poles or,
Mm-hmm.
because I had asked Jay about
Mhm.
that a long time ago, and they were mowing.
The commission has had an enforcement
Yeah.
order about this in the past. So this would be another good one to reach out to DEP about for support, because this
Yeah.
is direct impacts to a wetland.
This would be an excellent opportunity for the new owners to step up and do something.
They don't own, it's a
worthwhile.
separate parcel.
I thought they were buying the whole thing.
I don't know if they have or not, but it's mapped as a separate parcel.
Hmm.
Has its own number. All right. City of Easthampton, DEP file number 151302 for pump house demolition.
Okay, so I was in communication with Mike Owens, and he said that the city is currently waiting for response from the contractor as to when the precast concrete caps will be ready for installation. Additionally, the city has requested a time frame as to when the following project elements will be complete. Installing the edge forms for concrete pour, install precast concrete caps, pour 4-inch, like, I don't know if you want to list all these, I can't.
No,
Okay.
they're waiting on more detail
Yeah.
from the contractor. Okay.
And then he also said finally after this list, at which time I receive an updated schedule from the contractor, I will forward to you for your files. And Jeff had told me that to expect something from Mike in regards to this today, but I did not receive it. And I do have this demolition sequence plan
Okay.
that was sent to me, though it does seem to be, it only goes until the 11th of October 2019. So.
What are we waiting for them to do next?
There was like a giant hole in the side of the foundation that would have allowed any flowable fill to flow straight out into the pond, so they
I
couldn't
did
do it.
visit that 2 days ago,
Yeah.
so,
Did you see the giant hole?
no,
Okay.
there's
So
a
there's
concrete,
It's just not that obvious.
there's a concrete slab over
Why
it.
did it take so long to figure that out?
I don't know if you want to see this.
No, no.
Sorry, well.
There is a
It's
concrete
for the
slab
file.
over it, there's no hole, there's a fence.
Okay. Their permit's valid through 2022.
It looked like they were done.
Oh.
Well, just for
Well, yeah, I
point of
don't know.
reference, this was originally presented to the commission as an emergency. So,
Cool.
It looked complete almost.
though urgent, not all projects are emergencies.
Gotcha.
All right, next item, DEP file number, City of Easthampton, DEP file number 151303, roadway improvements, maintenance, we already went over this one.
Yep, that was what we.
Next, Beacon Solar LLC 151304, large scale solar at 50 Florence Road.
Mhm. Okay, so there's no schedule for work currently. They have all the required permits, however, they're participating in a SMART program, the SMART
Mhm.
program, possibly that might be the source of the delays. It's unlikely that any construction will be occurring this fall before the winter because of that, and then, it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of where it's at.
Okay, that's fine. Easthampton School Committee 151305, construction of new school building with associated parking, blah, 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 200 Park Street.
No updates.
Do we know whether or not they've recorded that order?
No, I don't know. What would be the best way to check for that?
You could check the deed for the property
Okay.
through masslandrecords.com. You could ask, follow up with the school committee.
Okay.
It's a little bit strange that the school committee was the applicant, only because they're not paid municipal employees.
Hmm.
But just in terms of continuity, because there's no guarantee. All right, next, City of Easthampton, DEP file number 151306, maintenance activities, River Street.
Yep, so I actually went on a site visit with Dan, the engineer, on the 30th of September, and I took pictures of the tree that the DEP sign was going to be on, and the damage from people. It was anyone who went on the site visit to the other River Street,
Mm-hmm.
the dock situation, it's that road with all the not potholes, and The only thing that was happening was that people trying to drive around to get around the potholes, it was starting to like widen the road and cause damage to the grass around there. But when I went on the site visit, all of the work was going to be happening pretty much just on the road, filling in the potholes and grading it to that degree. He was in contact to ask if there was any flagging of the wetlands necessary, we determined that wasn't the case, and I think it's done, it's pretty much finished by now. There was a bit of a sense of urgency just because the residents were getting tired.
To be fair, it was really bad.
It was really bad. And it was good too for just the surrounding vegetation because people were driving more and more like off of the established road,
So I guess the follow-up on that would be to reach out to Dan Murphy if the work has been completed, if he could just submit a request for certificate of compliance, if I could get closed out and taken off
Cool.
the books. That'd be great.
Sounds good.
All right, general business, meeting minutes, September 23rd, 2019.
Yeah.
Do we have the right quorum?
Oh.
Who's there?
You were there?
Was I here?
Can we see
I
who was here?
have, yes. Melissa was here, Julie, Dan, Mike, Jessica, and Jay.
Yes, we have quorum.
Sweet.
Motion to approve the minutes of September 23rd,
Second.
2019.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Oh yeah.
Back to.
And then, I'm not sure where this would go, but I did have a gentleman who lives near St. Bridget's. They were doing that restoration work there, and I think, Mike, you went to that site visit, and he was concerned, it's in a butter, and he was concerned that they were doing it in a way that they weren't supposed to be doing it. But I wasn't sure. if
Yeah,
that
I
was
was
the case. He
wondering,
took
that
pictures.
wasn't on our agenda at all.
Was this
like,
under
here.
enforcement?
No, it wasn't
Oh, it
there.
needs to come back onto
Okay.
enforcement actions.
Okay, so let's see, let me write that down. But here's the
Okay.
pictures that he sent me, if you guys wanna see them.
Sure.
Yeah, we did a site visit and it looked like they started doing work, but
Have you
they
finished?
haven't done nearly half of it.
Can I just
Um,
add this back in?
Yeah,
As
absolutely.
G?
They were waiting, my understanding from the, Mr. Summers, he had been talking, I think he was there on your site visit. They were waiting to begin the work because they wanted us to check their erosion, controls that had been in place. And so that was the purpose of that site visit, was for you guys to say
Oh.
that those erosion controls were correct, and then they could begin. And then after that, on the
They were there.
17th, yeah, on October 17th, and a butter came in and gave me these images, and he was concerned that that was not supposed to be happening. He was concerned that that was proof that they were filling that area in and then going down, and if you see the next images. I wasn't really sure, but I know that this butter was very,
It didn't look like they did much, except maybe had some,
I'm not even sure where this is,
probably.
what perspective this is from.
yeah, he seemed to think that they weren't supposed to be doing anything in that area, that they're doing stuff, and.
What area, without
Exactly.
knowing where that is at the site plan?
I'm gonna need to, yeah, do
You
some
can do
more
a site
thinking.
visit.
Okay,
If you wanna
yeah.
schedule a site visit, I think that's.
I mean, if the little building is here, they
Mhm.
have had a piece of equipment sitting here
Okay.
lately.
Yeah, it's just without any perspective on where these photos are taken, it's, I couldn't have told you these were at St. Bridget's.
Was that the request though, to make sure the, what,
What was
barrier?
it? Sorry, what was it?
The site
That's- I mean,
visit, the
that's the little
purpose
building.
was for what?
To make sure that before they
But
began
are we
work
looking
on
at-
that restoration
looking at-
effort, that the erosion controls were what they needed to be.
Okay. So I would, well.
Maybe,
Nice.
Thank you.
it looked like at least that was done, but
Okay,
that was it.
well, that was the point, yeah, that's how it should have been, that only the erosion stuff was in place because they weren't supposed to have started work until we had confirmation that that was the enforcement,
Can we check with
Erosion
Jay,
stuff
or I
is-
can check with Jay,
Sure.
Okay.
to make sure?
So I guess maybe just getting an update from them, a status update before the next meeting would be appreciated. Maybe if you feel there's a site visit you need to perform, then please do.
'Cause, yeah, we did that, what, two weeks ago?
It looks like it hasn't been
Yeah.
on the minutes since August 26th. It was deleted from the minutes. There's like the edited versions on Jay's computer,
Mhm.
and for some reason it was deleted from the minutes.
That and the other one, Riverside Industries, looks like it was deleted.
Well, we issued a certificate of compliance and there's growth there. We did issue a certificate of compliance.
Oh yeah, so that's the other thing, if you wanna move to that, that's what I have next, is that.
That was the other site visit within
Mm-hmm.
the last meeting.
Yeah, so that was the thing, it was confusing, cause I didn't realize that they had been issued a certificate of compliance for this already. And so they, but maybe that was part of it, was that, yeah, it says in the minutes that we did issue one, and then they I guess they just, either I don't know if they lost it or they never got it or what happened. But so they had requested that they could get a new one, and there was a question about like the growth and what was happening there, so we just went out and did another site visit just to make sure it was really still good, and basically we just need to I rewrote them a new one and it just needs to be signed.
Does it have the previous dates in it?
It has the, let's see.
Original dates?
Did
I
we
have-
have a COC on that?
Yeah. And we were just gonna have them follow up,
Okay.
because it was, because part of the problem was we couldn't get adequate pre-construction documentation, so it was just a matter of,
Right. I don't have the original site visit, if there, I'm assuming one was conducted. I'd have to go back and
we
do
need to
a
go
research.
back and use that date.
Yeah, okay. Well, should I put both in there, that there was a site visit on, okay, just
No,
one?
because we're just reissuing the original.
Okay, cool. And then, I'll just need to change the date
Mhm.
for date of issuance, should go back to whenever we.
Whatever it
okay.
was, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
is it okay if I just cross those things out and then handwrite that in, but if you guys sign this one, or?
Are the signatures on the same page?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Let's not. I mean, I'd rather we just have a note in the minutes that it's being reissued because the original was lost. Do we have a copy in our file?
No, yeah, that was weird, as I checked through like all the files, I couldn't find anything, and she doesn't have one, and they were able to send me, I have the request, I have
I
like all
believe it.
kinds of stuff, so.
That was
in a-
issued it and then it just never actually materialized.
Yeah, my thing is that, she like really, if it's just a matter, cause all I need is from you guys is the signatures, and she's been waiting for a long time, so I don't know if making her wait another 2 weeks until you're all together to sign it again. Can I just print out, really quick, and I just need to fix those
Mhm.
dates, and can I just leave them blank? I'll have to do a little research to see what the dates are supposed to be, and then just
Yes.
write it in? Okay, I'll be right back then, just take me a
Okay.
second to print it.
Yeah, it seemed fine on the last visit.
I think that was really getting lost in the weeds. So, in the interim, the commission is in receipt of a notice of intent, Mass DEP file number 151297, filed by Easthampton Park Solar 1 LLC for solar project at Westview Terrace, map 165, lot 47, filed 4/10/2018, identified as date of filing by Mass DEP. This filing has not been publicly noticed, nor have abutters been notified, and the NOI will essentially expire within 2 years of date of filing.
Getting close.
Commission is in receipt of a notification letter from Eversource Energy in regard to utility maintenance on line 1039 right-of-way. So, there is an exempt maintenance activity that the commission was notified of. And for reference, the 1039 right-of-way goes from the substation at the end of Connecticut River Oxbow and the bike path down to Canton. Which, across the
The
bike
site,
path? Yeah, the
Or
big
down.
substation,
Yeah.
that substation, across the road, other side of the railroad tracks.
Okay.
The
That-
tiny little bit of
Of
Easthampton on the
Easthampton,
Connecticut
okay.
River, yeah,
Mhm.
and the railroad tracks.
was that a different request? for-
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you guys looked at an RDA for 1962.
Okay.
And I guess we need Cassie for the next two things, which are site visits. Although we talked about Westview Terrace, so I guess the other one is just site visit for the Pascomet Conservation Trust footbridge at the trolley line.
Oh, we were gonna do that on our own.
Well, Jay and Michael tried to find it and they couldn't, Jay walked, no, not Michael, Jay, just Jay? Jay walked the entire loop trail
Oh.
and never came across a bridge, so.
Oh, did he? I thought he
I
found it.
think there's I don't know, he didn't seem to have found it last time. Okay, so for the record, the commission is reissuing an original copy of the certificate of compliance for DEP 151290 Riverside Industries bridge replacement project. As the original appears to have been lost.
In translation.
So we are reissuing this as a ministerial act. Mallory, is there any update on site visit for PCT footbridge trolley line?
You're just not here.
Oh
All
my
right.
god, I'm
I
sorry,
didn't
Cassie. Sorry, we were just putting her on the brain.
No, it's all good.
This meeting has clearly gone on too long.
It's a long one. I do not have an update because we still need to do a bit, I guess you guys tried to go out there and couldn't find it. And so I think we need to.
Can you reach out to
yeah.
whoever contacted, was it Garrett Stover?
Mm-hmm.
If you could just reach out to him, maybe you and he coordinate
yeah, that
directly if you have more flexibility, and then you just let us know when it is and if folks can come, they can be there. Okay, and then same thing, we already talked about SB Terrace.
Yes.
Okay, any other business?
Real quick,
Real
in
quick.
the Holly Circle, is there anything we can do from a commission standpoint? With no permits or delineation of the property?
Yeah,
He's dumping like 10 dump trucks a day of dirt.
Is it within 200 feet of the stream?
Who knows?
Cassie, can you follow up with Jeff on this? Because this is just gonna keep inching along.
right. So me and Jeff, it's definitely like, yeah, it's kind of on the forefront for us. So I went through, we have a lot of old records in regards to this property. So I went through and organized all of them by date and kind of created like a bit of a timeline of what went down and what the situation is with all of their past permitting and the completion of that if it is complete. And it looks so far that it was probably complete. It's just a question of the stormwater ordinance and if that is all in order. And that was a question of like when the stormwater ordinance like came into
But
effect.
how long is that valid for?
Sure, exactly. So it's kind of working out the details of those things now that we're trying to figure out. And then I know that they had moved the cylinders to the center of the property, and they had
Tipped them over.
per the health department, they had removed the water from inside of them. So yeah, Jeff and I are kind of trying to work together and figure out just what we have even to say about it, like where they're at to, I guess, everything in terms of compliance with their permitting and so on and so forth, so.
So the commission's jurisdiction begins in the 200-foot riverfront area. And that's measured from the mean annual high water line outward. And then if there are bordering vegetated wetlands, then those as well, and then bank.
Yeah.
So.
There are 2 streams on either side. White Brook and another one that probably intermittent. Doesn't show up all the time.
Okay. So.
We'll see. Jay and I mapped out property so we can overlay.
Okay.
And he came back and someone called the cops on him.
Yes, I recall that story. But for the record, he was not in violation of any law.
No, he
He was
was not.
properly licensed, et cetera, et
was.
cetera. He was using his drone.
Oh, I didn't know who the he was.
Jay. So, okay,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
The last thing I have is this letter of notice of maintenance for line 1032, Eversource.
1039.
1039. The other one ended in it too. Oh my god.
So that was the one, we read through that
Mm-hmm.
that item, but it's there if anyone wants to see it. All right, any other business? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved at 8:15.
Long.